And I'll kick it up in the...
Thanks for joining us on Thanksgiving week. It's going to be an exciting week. The time is now 7:31, and I would like to call the District 204 regular action meeting to order. And Marilyn, if you can please call the roll.
Member O'Bear is absent. Member Beta Daniels?
Present.
Member Dillon?
Here.
Member Gretsch?
Here.
Member Kelly?
Here.
Member Swinehart?
Here.
Member Thomas?
Here.
Great, thanks, Marilyn. I'll ask all to rise now and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone. First, I'd like to begin by asking if there's a motion to approve the agenda tonight as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. All right. Let's get down to business. First up, we have agenda-related public participation. Marilyn, do we have any agenda-related comments this evening?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes that portion. We'll begin by inviting LTA President Andrew Johannes up to the podium, please. Good to see you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Nice to see everyone. So teachers are busy wrapping up the first semester. There's a mad dash to the finish, especially after Thanksgiving break. It's hard to imagine we have 4 weeks after Thanksgiving break, and that's really only 3 weeks in finals, so crazy. So teachers are dedicated, and their passion ensures that all students are going to receive an excellent education. We'd like to continue to thank Dr. Waterman and Dr. Tyrell for their spirit of collaboration. There are many instances that the administration and teachers have worked together to solve some issues. The teachers welcome this and are willing participants to help in helping improve the school. Many teaching teams are continuing the curriculum review process. This is a very difficult process, but an important part of the education process here at LT. The teachers remain committed to the process and look to partner with the administration as we go through this. One area of concern from the teachers is the facilities, but discussing our concerns and issues with Brian Sachek, Dr. Waterman, Dr. Tyrell, Kevin Brown, and Greg Gardner, we know that these concerns can and will be addressed. I would like to recognize some of the achievements of our amazing teachers. Shannon Murray, she organized the German exchange. That was a great success. Everyone enjoyed that time with the German students. Dave Root was named Regional Teacher of the Year by Embry Brittle. Jessica Drogas was selected the 2022 University of Chicago Outstanding Educator. Now this is actually a very great award because it's student nominated. Students actually nominated her, a former student. So Lucille Seigel was the former student that nominated her. Jason Scales and The Lion were recognized as one of the top publications over the past 100 years for high school papers. I mean, that's amazing. You guys see it. It's a great publication. Joseph Maffey, Angela Gutierrez, and Mary Wolchek and the Menagerie students received second place at Best in Show Award at the National Scholastic Press Association. So again, that is an amazing publication. I hope that everyone gets to look at that. The student work is phenomenal. Krista Conrad got to sign the national anthem at the Bears. That's pretty cool. That was fun to see her on the field. And finally, I'd like to congratulate John Butcher, Mike Danner, Scott Walker, Joe Bobber, Brian Kopecki, Jeff Johnson, Eric Simon, Paul Lovato, Dave Robert, and all the fall coaches for great seasons in their respective sports. Not only do they do a great job coaching, they're excellent teachers as well. Our winter sports are underway, and we wish all the teams good luck. Finally, in this season of gratitude, I am grateful for the continued support of our amazing teachers from you, the board, and our administration. Together, we can truly provide a world-class education to our phenomenal students. Happy Thanksgiving to you and to all the families of LT. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think that we say that sentiment is the same. It's very reciprocal about how we feel to you guys too. So thank you. Next up, we have our student representative to the board, Matthew Walsh.
Thank you, President Dillon. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you. Starting off with athletics, the athletic fall season came to a close last week, and our LT athletes and teams most definitely excelled this year. With some big wins against Downers Grove North, Plainfield North, and Naperville Central, LT varsity football made it to the quarterfinals last weekend. They ended their season with a record of 9-3. A huge congratulations on a great season. Varsity boys soccer also had a phenomenal season, winning the regional championship against Argo on October 21st. These athletes ended up making it all the way to the sectional semifinals on October 25th. Our cross-country teams also had great performances this month. Boys cross-country got 2nd place at regionals and 5th place at sectionals, which advanced them to state in Peoria. On November 5th, the LT boys got 7th in state. Girls cross-country got 3rd on October 22nd, moving them on to sectionals at Wabansie Valley, where they placed 4th. At state, they placed 7th. Girls varsity volleyball won their IHSA regional championship on October 27th against Jones Prep, advancing them to the sectionals here at LT. Girls swimming and diving also had an amazing performance this month, placing 9th place at the IHS state meet. This month also held National Fall Signing Day, where 14 of our amazing senior athletes signed letters of intent to play their respective sports at their chosen college. Now moving on to extracurriculars. Our very own freshman and sophomore LT actors held the performances of The Good Doctor on November 11th to November 13th at the South Campus PAC. Many students also auditioned for the upcoming musical Fiddler on the Roof, which will be performed in February. Student Council and other LT leaders were hard at work organizing the annual Veterans Day Assembly on November 11th, where we welcomed our local veterans to honor them for their service, and also hosted a luncheon. Last week, many of our LT student leaders were also in attendance at Future Freshman Night, where the upcoming LT class of 2027 was able to check out some of the clubs and athletics available at LT. On Friday, November 4th through Sunday, November 6th, Snowball held its fall retreat for students. Menagerie won 2nd place in the Best of Show award at the National Scholastic Press Association, as Mr. Johannes said, which was held at the National High School Journalism Conference. Students were excited to receive the new edition of the Lyons newspaper on November 10th. Also, a huge congratulations to the Lyons newspaper for being nationally recognized for their work by being inducted into the Pacemaker 100. 41 LT musicians were selected for the ILMEA district ensembles. Last Saturday, November 19th, they performed with their ensembles at York High School and Elmhurst University. The annual LT Talent Show took place last Friday, November 18th. Our talented students here at LT got to show off their amazing skills such as singing, dancing, and even unique things such as yo-yoing. Clubs such as Madrigals, Color Guard, and the LT Steppers also performed. The LT Speech team performed amazingly this month. Most recently at Schaumburg, where they won 13 medals with many first-place wins. Also at Hoffman Estates High School, where they took home 17 medals and placed 3rd place out of 24 other schools. Model UN has also been having a very successful year. They received the title of Outstanding Large Delegation at their first conference of the year and have accumulated between 15 to 20 Best Delegate Awards. Model UN leaders are also planning on hosting a conference in February, which is ranked one of the best conferences in the state and has 600 delegates from all over the country involved. Thank you, that's all I have.
Just that? That's it?
That's it.
Killing it. That's amazing. That is really, really good stuff. Thank you for sharing. It's kind of a nice way to round out the end of the calendar year. So many great things. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple. Wow. Yeah.
Well, happening.
And then school stuff. Cool. Next, we'll turn it over to Dr. Waterman for our superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, President Dillon. I have kind of a brief report tonight, but I want to start with, Tuesday, November 15th marked the official statewide observance of School Board Day in Illinois, which serves as an opportunity to show support for our school boards, not only as a collective group, but to share appreciation for the individuals who serve our school communities. There are 6,000 elected and unpaid volunteers who serve on school boards throughout Illinois, including, of course, all 7 of you, the LT Board of Education. So I just want to start my report tonight by publicly recognizing all of you for your service to the LT student, staff, and community. I don't think there's a better theme than this year's theme, which is Partners in Excellence, to describe the work that all of you do. And I'm certainly thankful to partner with each of you to serve our LT community. I know our school community supports you and thanks you for your service as a school board member. Thank you.
Thank you.
LT is proud to celebrate Native American Heritage Month throughout the month of November. In 1990, President Bush declared the month of November as Native American Heritage Month, which aims to provide a platform for Native people in the U.S. to share their culture, traditions, music, crafts, dance, and ways and concepts of life. Here at LT, we're proud to host some activities this month, which celebrates Native Americans, their continued contributions to our country, and to bring awareness, all of which is an important part of Native American Heritage Month. And then to conclude, quick FOIA report update. Since our October meeting, we've received 4 FOIA requests. We have a law firm that requested a variety of documents and emails pertaining to a student matter. Smart Procure requested all purchasing records from August 15th to current. A local reporter requested a copy of the intergovernmental agreement between College of DuPage and LT. And then a local reporter requested the applications for clubs and other groups that may have been rejected in the latest round of stipend committee recommendations last week. So with that said, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving week and weekend. That concludes my superintendent report for this evening.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Lorimer. That's awesome. Okay, well then we can now move on to the action items on our agenda today. We only have one item under new business. It's the approval of the 2022 estimated tax levy. I'm going to turn that over to Brian.
Thank you, President Dillon. Good evening, everyone. And so this is the long-awaited information that I had been telling you about for the last 2 months, that we finally did receive that report, the 2021 tax levy report from the county. Now, the one that I have attached in the packet is still sort of a draft, but generally speaking, nothing really changes from that draft report until, to the final that they'll publish out on the website. Excuse me. So tonight we are actually ready to take a much deeper dive into what the 2022 tax levy will look like, based upon the fact that we now have the numbers for the 2021 and we can move that forward. So that being said, as I usually do, I start off and remind everyone that really there are 2 numbers that we still have to estimate in this particular exercise, and that is the equalized assessed valuation of the community. We have to estimate that. And then we also have to estimate a new property number that we think would be applied to the levy for 2022. Now, what's interesting about that is we want to always make sure that we capture everything in that first year that we can. So typically that new property number will be higher than what we actually expect. But again, we want to make sure that we're capturing everything all of that new property in the first year. So that's why the number is, always a little bit higher than what we originally anticipate. So that being said, I'm going to start really just kind of on page 5, and I'm going to kind of take you through the math here and how we arrive at some of the numbers that we look at. And so, just starting at the top of that page, you'll see that our aggregate extension for the tax levy in 2021 was $73,183,000. As you recall, as we've talked about, the CPI for December of 2021, which is the one that we use to apply to this particular upcoming tax levy, was 5%. The consumer price index actually was 7%. So inflation was running 7% higher than it was the prior year, but we are capped at 5%. So the property tax extension limitation law says that it's the lesser of 5% or what the actual CPI is. And so in prior years, when the CPI was 1.4%, as it was for 2021, we were capped at 1.4%. However, this coming year, because the CPI was 7%, we're capped at 5%. And so if you actually look at there, you multiply that prior year 2021 extension by that 5%, you come up with a number of $76,842,000, okay? And then what we do, again, is we have to project the new EAV for 2022. It is not uncommon in the year before a triennial. So when we talk about the history, you'll see that we're the year before a triennial reassessment for the south side of Cook County, that we would have a small increase, maybe a 1.5% to 2% increase in our total EAV. And so that's kind of what we projected here with this dollar amount. And then we were looking at $50 million of new properties. So you add that in and you come to a new EAV of $3,617,000,000, which would be, again, completely estimated for 2022. Then what we do is we come up, we need to look at it, kind of generate a tax rate. What does that look like? So what we do is we take our 2022 extension base, which is the number from up above, the $76,842,000. We divide that by the current year EAV minus the new property. Okay? And so then we come up with a limiting rate, a tax rate of 2.1542. So then what we do is we take that tax rate, the 2.1542. Now we go back and we add in the new property back to that total dollar amount on the EAV of the $3,617,000,000. And then we come up with a number, a maximum aggregate levy, including new property now, of $77,919,000. Okay? So really, what ends up happening is we know that the $76,842,000 is a good number because we simply multiply the prior year by the current year of 5%, and that's a good number. So if we have $50 million of new property and our tax rate, again, we're estimating some of these numbers, comes in where, at that 2.1542, we would expect to add another $1,077,000 of additional money on top of the 5% that we had. But again, that's attributable, that additional $1,077,000 is attributable only to the new property. So that does not hit the current homeowners, current taxpayers in the community. Any questions so far?
And the 50 million for the projected new property is high because we have to go high.
Right.
And then that will clean itself up.
That's correct.
Okay.
So we could ask for $100 million in new property, and when it's all said and done, the county is only going to extend taxes on the actual new property number. So if, kind of as I said here, if you look down a couple of paragraphs, if in fact, let's say the new property was only $25 million, we would expect about half of that $1,077,000, so we get about $500,000 instead. And so the county isn't going to extend anything onto property that's not on the tax rolls. So they look at the existing EAV, which is the current, all of the current property there, both residential, commercial, industrial, and then they look at the new property. Now, the new property also includes residential, commercial, industrial, and then they apply that rate against the new property number for those new properties, and that's how they roll onto the tax rolls. But again, we can ask for any number there. We're only going to receive the actual dollar amount that's attributable to what we actually have in that year that's rolled onto the tax rolls.
And 50 million is that what we usually, where do you have a guess of where you think it really will come in?
I don't.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the couple of prior years, we've been in the mid $35 million, $40 million range. And if you look at the new property for this year, we were a little better than $7 million, so right around $8 million. So that was a real dramatic drop from where we were in the prior years. But again, last year we had $60 million on as part of the levy, and so we know we weren't anywhere near that. But again, the dollar amount is only applied to that $7.7 million, $8 million roughly, and that's it. So it isn't as though we're getting anything extra because we've asked for more.
Okay.
Okay?
The risk would be that, the risk to the school's finances would be that your 50 million estimate is too low and we're leaving money on the table. It just sounds like historically 50 million should be a plenty large number.
That's correct.
And then also, if I understand correctly from last year and again this year, any error in your estimation, so let's say it's really 40 million, not 50, or 10 million, not 50, none of that impacts any current homeowner, current
Correct.
business owner, there's no
Right.
no negative impact to any individual that's currently on the tax roll.
That's correct. Yep, that's exactly right. It only applies to those properties that the county has now recognized as new property, and so they have to roll them in somewhere onto the tax rolls, and that's how they do it.
Deal.
All right. Any additional questions on that at all? Okay, so what I want to just quickly do here is flip over to page 7. And so this is the page where I kind of do all of the math, and we kind of take a look at what we're actually levying right now for the estimated levy in each one of our operating funds. And so if you look at the top there in column D and really column A, so 3.5 billion was our EAV for 2021. Again, a small 1.5% increase to that for 2022 brings us to, again, $3.567 billion for 2022. The estimated new property And at $50 million, our total EAV estimate at $3.6 billion, I apologize, for an increase of 2.92%, which is kind of in line with what we've seen in those historical years before that triennial reassessment. Now we're going to go down to kind of line, we're staying in column D, but we're going down to line 12. So now you see all of our operating funds: education, O&M, transportation, IMRF, Social Security, Medicare, working cash. We don't have any levies in those. And then finally, special education. And so what we do here now is we generate that projected rate. And as we talked about earlier, that's for each fund based on what the dollar amount we'd be levying in each one of those funds. And there you see at the bottom on line 23, the 2.1542, which is what we estimate. Now again, that's a true estimate because I'm working with numbers that we think are going to be close, but when it's all said and done, we have to actually see what they are. So then if you jump over to column F, or in this case, you see the 2020 levy extension under B there, you look at every one of those dollar amounts is what was extended in the 2021 tax levy. Okay, so $58.7 million in the ed fund, $8.8 million in O&M, and so on down the line. And that gets you back to that $73,183,000 that we talked about earlier. Jump over to the next column there. Now you see what we would be proposing for a levy simply based on the 5% increase. Okay, so you don't have to simply say, look, we're going to just add 5% to every one of the prior year levies. So in fact, that's not what we're doing here. What we're really doing, if you look, is we're putting most of that additional $3.6 million, I forgot to mention, it's about a $3.6 million increase, right, in total. So most of that $3.6 million is going into the education fund, right? And then we're kind of distributing some of that to some of the other funds as we see that we think we're going to need that. So adding up all those dollar amounts there, you come down to the bottom, the $76,842,544. So that gets us our additional 5%. All right, and we know that because we saw it in the last page where we got to the $76,842,000. Now let's take a look at the new property in the next column. So if we had $50 million worth of new property, we would then want to add these additional dollar amounts to what we saw in the prior column, because these would then be numbers that would be generated, dollars that would be generated based on the new property, okay? And so adding that column C and D together, this then brings us to a new levy for each one of those funds. And you'll see adding all of those up gets us back to that $77,919,000. And so really in that column L, the shaded area there, you'll see that those would be the proposed levy numbers for each fund for the 2022 tax levy. So now let's go, wait a minute, let me take a break there. Any questions on what we've done there?
So Brian, really the only area that we think could potentially fluctuate will be that section D there, right? That's the one that we don't have. That, I mean, like, back to your point, you said it could be half of that.
It could be, right. That's very possible.
But C is pretty solid.
Yeah, C is going to be, that's a number that, based upon on the board approving this levy, this dollar amount, that 5% will be included in next year's levy. There's no doubt about that. Okay? Sure. Yeah, Jill.
I did, on the proposed 2022 tax levy sheet, when we're looking under like lines 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Yes.
We have nothing allocated to them.
Right.
Why is that?
We typically don't levy in those accounts. The district has a history of not levying in those accounts. The working cash fund essentially is a fund where you would put dollars to be used for the purpose of interfund loans. It's kind of like a bit of a savings account, I guess, if you will. So we have no reason to levy in there. The rent fund, we're not paying any rent to anybody, so we're not levying anything there. The life safety fund, you could levy in there, but oftentimes I should say, let me take a step back with that. If you're going to levy in there, you have to have life safety projects on the books, which we do. But I can tell you that there's really no reason to levy in the life safety fund because we can just run those projects out of the O&M fund. So there's really and you'd be taking money from the other funds to put in there, because again, we're capped at the total dollar amount. So we have to move it around if that's what we wanted to do.
You can move that for there, because life and safety seem to be some of the things we were chatting about.
Yes,
Okay.
but again, what we would do is, we don't run it here. Essentially, what we do is we just simply put that money into the O&M fund, and then we run the projects out of the O&M fund.
Got it.
We get to the same, we
Okay.
get to the same place. And then the tort immunity fund, again, that's a fund where you can levy dollars. It is a fund that is often very scrutinized, because it has a limited purpose for what it can be used for. And so, again, there's really no reason for us to utilize that fund when we can pay all of the expenses. So what would you pay out of the tort fund? Your property casualty insurance, your workers' compensation insurance. Those are the kinds of things that you would pay for, levy for, and pay for out of that fund. And the district has been paying for those out of the education fund for an extended period of time. And so there's really no reason to put any dollars into those.
Right, but now that leads me to, like, so why would you pay that out of the education fund? Like, why would you pay, like, premiums out of the education fund?
Because you can actually do that. You could,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Just seems like it wouldn't be an educational.
Yeah, no, you can, because it is truly part of running your educational program, right? You
Right,
have to
okay.
have, sure, while we're mixing
run
in
this with that.
salaries and benefits, but we can't operate without workers' compensation
Got it.
insurance.
Okay.
You know, that sort of thing. So that's how we handle that.
Okay, so this gives you, what I'm hearing you say then is it gives you the most flexibility of the way that you've had this
That's right.
set up to move things around and make it work.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's why there's nothing allocated
Correct.
for the 5 different things.
Yes. And again, the district,
Or it just offers more flexibility.
it does. And then, of course, like I said, the district has a long history of not levying in any of those funds. Long before, precedes me.
And there would be no benefit to have it be more broken down, it doesn't seem like.
No, because ultimately what would end up happening is if we wanted to put money in any one of those funds for the levy, you'd have to take it from one of the other funds.
Got it. There's no more money you're getting.
There's no additional money that you're getting.
It doesn't matter. Okay.
That's right.
So simple is better.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for answering that.
Sure, no problem. All right, any other questions on that? Okay, let's kind of go down, we're going to stay sort of in column L there, the grade column, shaded column there. So really, what does that mean? That means that at the end of the day, that $77.9 million is $4,736,000 higher than the prior year, which is an increase of 6.47%. You'll recall from our last two conversations, I told you we would most likely end up between 6 and 7% in terms of, total increase, and there we are, the 6.47%. Now, if you look over to the left, and then you look on line 28, for example, we now include the bond and interest fund, right? So the bond and interest fund, that's that supplemental levy piece that we talk about, but I kind of put it on here so you have the full flavor of what the levy would look like. So if you look in column F, the bond and interest levy in 2021 was $2,678,000 total. The levy for this year, and that supplemental levy would be $2,704,000. So an increase of about 1%. That, if you go to line 31, you now see the total tax rate, including the bond and interest fund, of 2.232. Okay, so that becomes really what that total tax rate would be. The extension of $75,862,000 in column F, the total extension from 2021. Now we're comparing that to $80,624,000, which is an increase of 6.28% in total from the prior year. So again, none of that is surprising because we've talked about that, and so we knew that's exactly where we would be based upon, again, that $50 million in new property. Now, if we didn't add $50 million in new property, then the percentage would be smaller, right? That's true, it would go down. But look, at this particular point, again, the 5% is attributable to the CPI, and the other, basically 1.47%, is attributable to that new property.
Ryan, when does it resolve itself that, when do the numbers come out again that we know what the actual new property ends up being?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically, the county will have that information to us in July, in about that time frame. Of course, this year wasn't until end of October, beginning of November, right, because of that delay. So typically, we would see that at the end of July, somewhere in that area, before that second tax bill installment comes out. So that's when we would see those.
Great.
Yeah. So any questions on page 7 at all. So that's really, when we talk about the estimated levy numbers for 2022, it's this column here that has those shaded numbers. That's what we would be asking the board to approve, okay? A couple of other quick documents here. Again, if you look on page 8, here you have kind of a history of what has gone on in the district. And so again, you'll see tax year, first of all, at the top, 2017 and tax year 2020, they have a highlight to them, and that's because those were reassessment years for the South Cook triennial. And so again, 2022 will be the year before that, and typically, like I said, we'll see a small percentage increase in our EAV for that going forward. You look at what the actual, if you look at new property, you see going back to 16, 28.3, 17, 38.1, and so on. You can look at those down the line, and if you look at, the most 3 recent prior years, really 36 million, 42 million, and then 7.7, so $8 million really dropped down quite a bit there. But again, we're looking at that $50 million mark just to make sure that we're capturing everything in that future year. Total tax rates, you see those dollar amounts there in that total that we talked about, the 2.32, which is a 3.38% increase. The CPI, so if you look back at the CPI, of course, this year, as we talked about, is 5%. You go back the 6 years that I have on there, 0.7, 2.1, 2.1, 1.9, 2.3, 1.4. So obviously, this year is quite a bit bigger. And then if you look based upon our prior years, you can see that we typically fell within that 2.5% to 3%, 3.5% increase. This year is going to be much higher because of the fact that the CPI at 5% is much higher as well. And then really those next couple of lines, those are really just kind of repeats of the numbers that I have there, and those are just estimated. That's all that they are. Until I have the actuals, there's nothing new to put in there. But everything that is from columns B to G, those are actual numbers from the prior years, as far as the history goes. Any questions there? Okay, so going on to page 9, if you look at page 9, this is the page where we do some real projecting here based upon the numbers that we already have, right? And again, this is an absolute projection. There are a number of factors that can change this dramatically. But what we kind of do is we say, look, if in fact we're increasing the levy by 5%, look at the factors in terms of increasing the EAV, and kind of, bring those items forward, right, to somebody's tax bill. So what does that look like? Well, so we're looking at 4 different properties here with different values. Keep in mind that what I'm showing you here is only the portion of the tax bill that is related to LT, the District 204. That's it. This is not every other taxing body, right? So every other taxing body is going through the same process we are, approving a tax levy. Their rate is also applied to an individual homeowner's tax bill, and that generates dollars as well. So this is only the District 204 portion. And so just to kind of give you an idea, if you look at those properties, if you had a 2021 market value of around $1.2 million, and again, your assessed market value at 10%, you have a multiplier then that Cook County adds to, or I should say multiplies property values by. They come up with a true EAV there on line 9 of $350,000. The total tax rate for the district was 2.159. So you apply that, and then the taxes before the exemptions would be $7,570. And then the assumption is that they'd have a homeowner exemption. They could have other exemptions as well, the senior freeze, the senior citizens exemption. But for this purpose, we're saying homeowner exemption because everybody would get that. So that would be a reduction of $216. And then their final tax bill to LT would be $7,354. And again, we're talking about a property that's almost $1.2 million in value, okay? Now we go down to the 2022 estimated. Same process. We're keeping, the multiplier the same. We're increasing the assessed value by about that 2%, which is what we kind of talked about, in terms of where we thought we might be. Apply the new tax rate to it, and at the 2.232, which is that total amount. And so what exactly does that do? Well, that then would suggest that we would have, if you look on line 33, about a $365 increase to a homeowner that had a home valued at about $1.2 million. And really, if you look at it, that's right about in line with the 5%, right? That's right there. Now, again, I want to say this because I think it's important. We're making a lot of assumptions in this particular document. There's still a portion of this that the district does not control, and that's assessment, the property assessment, right? So the scenario we have here, we're saying, look, everybody goes up by, 2.5% in their EAV. The multiplier stays the same. We know not all of that's going to happen. But this just gives a flavor of what it would potentially look like. If you're in part of the community where, for whatever reason, the EAV goes up 10%, right? Well, you're probably going to pay more than that, right, than what we see here. If you're in the part of the community where the EAV goes down by 3 or 4 or 5%, you may pay less than this. So we're just kind of looking at, if we keep everything sort of, similar to what we saw in the prior year, how does it play out? And so this gives you an idea of what that would look like. But again, we don't control that assessment process. The county does that. And so, again, the homeowners' tax bills may look very different than what we actually see here. But again, that's based upon that assessment piece. Okay? Any questions on that at all? Okay? Good. Good. Yeah. Great, you're welcome. And remember, that's only the portion for LT.
Right.
You see every other taxing body on there. Hey, Jill.
I do have a question with regards to the total exemptions of 216, because I'm looking at a tax bill, just when I'm like, that has almost spot on with the same market value
Yeah.
that you have. So
Yeah.
how are you getting the $216 for the exemptions?
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, because the tax bill I'm looking at actually is the homeowner's exemption is $910, if you're assuming it is a homeowner's exemption.
How much was it?
$910.
$910. So I use the county's formula that they have, and I can actually pull that up.
Might be a little light.
It might be.
It might not be as bad as.
Right. Give me just 1 second. I'm pulling up the actual spreadsheet so I can, grab the.
It's a 2021 actual bill that I'm looking at, and the assessed value of the home is $715.
Okay.
So a little bit under it, but
Right.
this homeowner's exemption is $910.
Okay.
It makes sense that the exemption figure is the same in all 4 of your price points.
Because it might not be.
Actually, don't know.
So I'll double check that, but what the county was doing is the county was saying, if you take the tax rate, right, for a homeowner, and so in 2021, the 2.159, and then you multiply that by $10,000, which was pretty much straight across the board, that was the number that I was utilizing. I can take a look, and if they somehow change that formula, but I don't know that they did. I can take a look and see.
This is the exemption that.
Oh, yeah, wait a minute.
Lyons Township.
Hold
High
on,
School.
correct.
Is
Yes.
that what it's only for the component of the.
It's only, yes, I'm sorry, it's only
Not
for
for
the
the full
component
tax
of
bill.
us. That's
Okay.
correct.
Got it, okay.
Yes. So if you just take our tax rate and multiply it by that $10,000 amount, that's what.
Only what's attributed to that. So that
Yes.
would make. Okay, because I was
Correct.
like, it's much higher than that. That was what I was.
Yes,
Okay, so that would make sense. Okay.
right. And that's why it's going to be the same for all the homes,
Right.
because they take the tax rate that the district has and they multiply it by that $10,000 figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel more comfortable. I just want to make sure that bottom line number,
Yes, I just,
when people read it.
I was just in the process of saying this only belongs to LT, and then I forgot that also only belongs to LT too. So that's only the
makes
portion.
sense. That's the missing thing.
Yeah, that's only the portion that belongs to us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure. Any other questions on that at all? Okay. So just a couple other quick things. On page 10, you would see the actual, so let me take a step back. Because we're asking for more than 5%, the district is required to hold a truth and taxation hearing in December before we adopt the final levy. The district has always held truth and taxation hearings, regardless of whether we've had 5% or not. And since I've been here, this is the first time we've ever had something over 5%, but we've still done that. We publish in the newspaper, and I think it's a great transparency item for, the community to take a look at. And so really, this is what you would see in the newspaper advertising that truth and taxation hearing, and this has to be published no less than 7 and no more than 14 days before the actual hearing takes place. So we'd be probably looking to get it in that in the newspaper, probably one of the Thursdays before the board meeting for publication. So that's what this looks like. The one thing I want to point out is that when you look at in the next pages, I have an actual copy of what the 2021 levy looks like. One of the items we talked about last year was that the county has this recapture levy where they look at adding money back in that we lost to property tax refunds, okay? And so when you look at this particular document, all of this that I have for you here does not include that number because I don't know what that number is going to be. It does generate a tax rate. There will be some additional number to this. But because I don't know what that number is going to be, I'm showing you this based solely on the fact that there's new property and a 5% increase to the existing properties. When we publish the document in the newspaper, in the total on the bottom page, we have to include that number that is now the total dollar amount on the actual levy itself. So that's the number that we actually have to look at. So if you look at that and you say, why is this a little bit different than what we talked about? That's why, because there's another $864,000 that's included, and it's down here at the bottom, that we didn't levy, the district didn't levy, that's now added back in according to the state law that provides that additional dollars that are coming back to us from prior year levies that were removed because of property tax refunds that were achieved, okay? And so that's the difference in why you would see a little different number here. And then finally, as I said, this is the 2021 levy. It's a draft form. I don't think that anything here is going to change. And you can check all of my numbers against this from 2021. I'm certainly hopeful that they're all the same. I believe that they are. I've gone over this multiple times. And so that being said, again, be happy to answer any additional questions. I know this one takes a long time. Typically, I would get you a copy of this in October. That's when we would first look at this, and we'd go through it extensively then. We did not have those numbers. We do now, and so really this is the first time I know that obviously the board is seeing this as an actual tax levy. And so again, really at tonight's meeting, what we need to do is look at the approval for the estimated levy. And so again, that's as presented there really on page 7 with those dollar amounts. We will come back. I will let you know if there's any changes to this in December at the committee of the whole meeting, and if there's any changes for, of course, the board meeting in December. We have the truth and taxation hearing. We then adopt the final levy. The deadline to produce our tax levy to the county, to Cook County, is the last Tuesday in December. And if you don't do it by that day, they will not extend a levy for you. And as you can see with these dollar amounts, this being about 85% of our total revenue, we would be in some trouble if we didn't meet that deadline, which we won't do. We will meet the deadline, I promise that.
Can I ask you a question about the notice?
Sure.
Just because it's funny to me that the rules are still newspaper. We'll have this on our website, right?
We can put it on the website. Yeah. The rule.
Nobody reads newspaper.
Yeah, that's right. The rule is still newspaper.
I know.
And just as we do with our other hearings, we can put it up on the website.
Yeah,
certainly.
I think that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's great.
So, any additional questions on this? I know it's a lot. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get through it and so that it makes sense to everybody. And again, we'll see it again. I'll bring it back to the committee of the whole in December, so there'll be another opportunity there. I don't think anything is going to change. And then we bring it back in December for the final. So, any additional questions? Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, we had a good estimate of where we were going to land, but it would have been sort of a useless exercise to produce something prior to that because we didn't have the actual numbers. Then we have to go back and change it, and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense.
I really appreciate all your work on this and all of your estimates for the last few months. I have so much confidence in your abilities and your work with this, and I unbelievably appreciate what you do to keep us where we need to be.
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome,
you.
and thank you. I appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah.
Being able to explain it so thoroughly is really helpful.
Yeah, this one, as I was telling Dr. Waterman, I said, typically I will take some time of 2 to 3 weeks, right, when I start putting the levy together. And this one, we had nothing of the sort. So it was, and look, I'll work on it here and then I'll put it away. I'll do something else. I come back and look at my numbers and like, okay, yeah, that all still makes sense to me. That's great. Let's go back and do it again. So, but this one, we had about a week and a half of time to kind of get it all together. So, yeah. But thankfully, I think this is my 23rd levy, so there's a little bit of history there, which is experience, which is kind of helpful in these situations. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Welcome.
I was gonna say, thank you for explaining it, because maybe the 10th time now that you've explained it, I finally got it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your patience and keeping it going. I finally, it all clicked.
There's a lot here. You do it once a year and then you move on. So, and then you don't see it again for another 9 or 10 months, so.
Thank you.
All right, gang, with that then, is there a motion to approve the 2022 estimated tax levy as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Member Beta Daniels,
Yes.
Member Gretsch,
Yes.
Member Kelly,
Yes.
Member Swinehart,
Yes.
Member Thomas,
Yes.
Member Dillon.
Yes, thank you. Great, thanks. And now, surprisingly, at the part where we have reached the consent agenda. So is there a motion then to approve the consent agenda as presented tonight?
So moved.
Second?
Member Gretsch,
Yes.
Member Kelly,
Yes.
Member Swinehart,
Yes.
Member Thomas,
Yes.
Member Beta Daniels,
Yes.
Member Dillon.
Yes. Thank you again. Well, that was great. At this time, we'll now begin the non-agenda related portion of public comments. Marilyn, do we have?
No.
No, everyone is getting ready for Thanksgiving. And I don't blame them. There's lots to be done. That's great. Okay. Well, thank you. That concludes our non-agenda related public comments. At this time, the board will now adjourn into closed session for the reasons listed on our agenda. We won't be taking any action tonight following closed session, but we will be going into closed session now at this time. So is there a motion to adjourn into closed session?
So moved. Second?
Member Kelly,
Yes.
Member Swinehart,
Yes.
Member Thomas,
Yes.
Member O'Bear, oh, sorry, she's absent. Member Beta Daniels,
Yes.
Member Gretsch,
Yes.
Member Dillon.
Yes. Great. Can I have a motion then to move? Oh, sorry. Getting ahead of my script. But thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy
Certainly
Thanksgiving.
welcome to come back afterwards. But you might want to go and get ready for the holidays. Sorry, I'm like.